Just before we start the show, I want to tell you about RecFest USA, an extraordinary event happening in Nashville on the 13th and 14th of September. Part festival, part conference, RecFest is a unique experience, long established in the UK. I've attended most of them, and I highly recommend you experience the incredible combination of content, networking, and celebration of all that's good in talent acquisition. RecFest is coming to America, and I've got a mega discount code for you. Go to recfest.com/USA and use the code RF50 to get 50% off your tickets. That's recfest.com/USA, and the discount code is RF50.
There's been more of scientific discovery, more of technical advancement and material progress in your lifetime and mine than in all the ages of history.
Hi there, this is Matt Alder. Welcome to episode 519 of the Recruiting Future podcast. I recently hosted a webinar on the future of talent acquisition, and I asked the audience to consider this question. Will there ever be as many recruiters again as there were in August 2022? The arrival of universally available generative AI and a harsh economic climate has caused the perfect storm in our industry. But how much long-term disruption of talent acquisition and potential elimination of recruiting roles could there be? My guest this week is Allyn Bailey, a highly experienced talent acquisition leader who previously held a global role at Intel and is now Executive Director of Hiring Success at SmartRecruiters. A couple of weeks ago, Allyn put out a challenge on LinkedIn that she was prepared to debate her belief that a major organisation would move to recruiterless recruiting within the next 18 months. Because I consider her to be one of the most innovative thinkers in the industry, I took the opportunity at the recent Unleash America event to learn more about her hypothesis. I also got her thoughts on the future structure of talent acquisition teams and her advice around reskilling and retraining for those at risk of being displaced. Hi Allyn, welcome back to the podcast.
I am so excited to be here. You know you're my favorite person to talk to.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's true.
Brilliant to be talking face-to-face as well.
Right? We never get to do this.
Yeah,
this is great.
Absolutely. No, it's fantastic. Perhaps we should start with you just introducing yourself and telling everyone what you do.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Allyn Bailey. I currently work for SmartRecruiters. I run all of our TA consulting services, implementation, integration work. Previous to that, I worked for a large multinational technology company driving TA strategy, and have been in the industry for the last 10 years in various different practitioner roles, and now on the vendor side of the house, looking at where we're headed.
And I suppose before we kind of get into the conversation, let's just talk about where we are and what we're doing. And we're still on day one of the event. What have you seen that's interesting? What have you heard that's interesting? How's your day gone? What's kind of really stood out for you?
That's a great question. I also had some fabulous conversations as I've been here, and usually the one-off conversations. Most people who come to these things know it's gonna be kind of those sidebar conversations that you're having. And here's what I'm hearing that's intriguing me. I'm hearing people, and these are technologists, by the way, this is our business and what we do, who are still confused about the difference between what we were using for AI technology previously and generative AI and how it operates. And so what's interesting is I'm not a specialist at all in those sorts of areas, but I found myself being educating in that space more than I thought I would, which was that was a shocker to me. I guess I expected that to be a broader known thing. I think it's something we need to all understand better. I've also heard really a lot about fungibility and flexibility within technology. How do we start to put together technology stacks or solutions that can solve the problems of today without binding us into constraints that won't serve us tomorrow? And what does that look like?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's not how technology stacks have worked previously, right? They very much worked as we're intending this to be rich and complex and putting all these tentacles into your data systems and et cetera, all for the purpose of being sticky, right? We don't want you switching out technology left and right. And technologists are now starting to hear from practitioners that they need more fungibility and flexibility. So how do you do that? I think that's the question I'm hearing a lot of.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. Maybe something we'll talk about as we kind of get into the conversation. To kind of start off, so it was either yesterday or the day before, I can't remember what it was, but you put out something on LinkedIn. You put out a challenging statement on LinkedIn, suggesting that people would debate you. And it was all around the implication of what we're seeing with technology at the moment and everything else that's going on in the market. And it was your belief that recruiting could effectively be run with no people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that would happen very soon. Talk us through that.
Yeah. So, let me give you what drove me to make that statement. I feel comfortable doing it. Listen, I have been in the technology space for a while, putting technologies into companies and corporations. I know that for a long time we have had technological solutions for almost every part of the TA or recruiting process. But we've always told this story, and I was one of them, driving change inside a company, to the recruiters and sourcers and teams that I worked with that said, don't worry, technology is not here to replace you, it is here to augment you. You will always need the human touch. Why did we say that? And I think this is what I really started to ask myself the question, why did we say that? Because we believed it, because we understood that technology, particularly ones that were driven through algorithms and that were doing some of these fancy pieces of work for us, required us to insert the personalization, to be able to tell it what was good and what wasn't, to be able to serve as basically the human filter to translate technology world to human world. So there was always going to need to be humans to build relationships, right? Because this is a relationship-driven business. So when I worked at Intel for a long time, I was really enamored with this idea, and still am, that recruiting is a relationship-based business. That we have been driving it like a transaction, and it's relational. But it's always been hard to implement a fully relational function because recruiters and sourcers, TA leaders, we still are being held to operational metrics which are transactional. Speed to fill, cost per hire, right? All of these things. What does that mean? It means that even in our best efforts, when we know the smarter thing to do, take time to write personalized content, reach out at a regular cadence to keep people warm, all those things that allow us to build real pipeline versus rec-based recruiting, really cool stuff, requires this depth of relationship. And I wanted recruiters and sourcers to lean into that and to want to start to deliver at that level. I'm going to be honest with you, we haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, we haven't. And for a variety of different reasons. It was hard, we weren't skilled to do it, or we didn't have the enough or the right robust. Now enters generative AI, right? And listen, I was not the first on this ballpark, right? I saw it come out and I was like, okay, it's this ChatGPT thing. I was in the early years of natural language processing and chatbots before they were cool. I mean, I get how complex this stuff is to program. Everybody's getting too excited. It's not going to be that big a deal. And I had somebody who worked with me. His name is Tony DeGraff, and he said, no, you need to just go play with it. And then started sending me actual research articles on how this stuff is built and delivered. And I went down a rabbit hole one weekend, sitting out in my pool in Arizona, reading these weird technology research articles on how generative AI is actually learning to train itself, and realized, oh my God, this is fundamentally different. I no longer need humans to make us more human. The AI actually knows how to be more human than the humans do. Oh crap, now I can finally put a full statement out there that says, I don't know whether it makes sense to put humans in the mix of it. We are biased. We are costly, right? We require retraining. We live in an ecosystem where we hire and fire recruiting teams based on the economic circumstances of the world as it is. And it is a non-sustaining model. If I know that technology, and I would venture anybody to argue with me, that there is a step in the TA process from branding all the way through to assessment and selection that we do not have some sort of technology that can address today. I know it's there. My assertion was, listen, some smart, driven, TA or HR or CEO leader in some enterprise is going to look at this and go, wait a minute, we just laid off a whole bunch of recruiters in this last downturn. Should I be investing in new recruiters as we start to up-level our hiring? Or should I be investing in technology, and is there a new way to do this? And who sits down and says, my mandate is a recruiterless recruiting process, and gets really close to building an incident. It will take one enterprise to do it, and everybody else will follow. And I honestly think that's 18 months at the longest away. Somebody's going to do it.
I was going to say, how long do you think that's going to take?
Fast. This technology is switching so fast. The economic conditions, listen, the world we live in is changing so fast. The way in which people make decisions about how they hire, what their businesses look like. Look how fast we were able to learn. This is why we can make quicker business decisions. We learned how to pivot to a remote-focused world in literally 48 hours around the world.
That's very true.
So you tell me a TA leader can't figure out how to pivot to a recruiterless recruitment stack in 18 months? Easy. Easy peasy. And maybe they'll listen to this and they'll be I tell you what, somebody out there who wants to do it, if you're the first one is interested in doing it, I want to talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where you might be able to patchwork that solution together. It won't be elegant at first, right?
Yeah.
The first one out the door will be like, and it'll need some people here and there. I'm not saying none will exist. But I think my message in there was actually to people I've worked with for over a decade now. Recruiters and sourcers and recruitment marketers who deeply care about their work. And I'm deeply vested in them being successful. But I also think we have to stop lying to them now. It is now time for us to tell the truth and to say, no, you really do need to reskill. You gotta go into start thinking about going into TA ops. Start thinking about becoming somebody who is an expert at strategic systems design. If you are going to hang your hat on being an exceptional Boolean string constructor, your time's over. There is no need.
I can hear the people listening.
Oh, they're
some
angry
of the
at me.
people listening.
I'm going to be so people are either going to hate me, or they're all sitting there quietly going, yeah.
Absolutely. So I kind of just to sort of summarize that. So effectively, we know the technology is getting good. We know the technology can do lots of things. If we think about it, there is so much that is automated in our daily lives, and very often I'm quite happy to talk to something that's automated if it's doing it more efficiently and communicating with me better than a human. But what you're saying is we've always had this kind of mission or this desire in recruiting that this is human-based, we're going to have a great candidate experience, we're going to do all these kind of things, but actually that's not ever achievable because of lots of different factors. Yeah. So let's turn it over to the machines. Is that a good summary of what you said?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm looking at it honestly saying, listen, as somebody who's been trying to drive TA transformation for over a decade, if we were going to do it, we would have done it. Right? We did not have the will or the desire to figure out how to do it, to equip, to fund, to realign ourselves, to think differently, to operate in that model, and the time is over. The machines will now rule. They'll take over because they can do it. I can actually, years ago we started talking about my vision of moving away from a sales funnel and into an infinity loop framework, right? Which really said managing from the pipeline versus the rack. I always struggled with being able for that to live inside a TA organization effectively because we were always getting rid of redundant resources and challenges with cost per pill, et cetera. If I can now actually execute that, create personalized, robust, prioritized engagement interaction strategies that are valuable to candidates, useful to us in getting information and driving the data cycle that we need to drive, and do it through technology, I can actually make it happen. I can do it now, and I couldn't do it with people. I tried.
I think there's kind of nuance about this as well, because what you're saying is like someone will try this in an imperfect way within 18 months. What you're not saying is there will be no, because this will be how some people interpret it. What you're not saying is there will be no recruiters at all this time next year, and everyone will be doing all this kind of stuff. Because even if the technology moves quickly, companies and humans and stakeholders and managers don't.
Oh yeah, I'm still having conversations with people about how to do job scraping. Okay, so listen, we are not fast adopters in our world. This is not everything's going to turn over the dial tomorrow. I guess what I'm saying is it's going to happen. We now have a route to see how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we're past the question mark of asking, oh, is that real? How fast will that? Is that really relevant? Should I care, etc.? It's now time to wake up to care, to get smart about the technology, understand how it operates, and understand how, if you're in one of these roles, how do you start thinking about what your future is?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we don't need people who know. Listen, I love this business. We need really smart TA. We need smart people who understand recruitment process and what best practices to help us understand how technology should be executing.
Yeah.
These roles will exist, but they will be different. 18 months, we'll start to see the first players out there. Again, they may fall flat on their face and be horrid, right? I mean, I can talk to you about TA tech stacks that have failed humongously over time. We can all look at them. But those failures always lead to us learning very quickly. And this technology is advancing faster than we have ever seen.
Do you think that there is the potential for almost external pushback on this? So are candidates, potential talent, is something that they might not like? And also, I'm thinking in terms of like legislation and the various things that are happening to kind of maybe limit some of the things that AI can do. Do you think they're factors in this?
Yeah, I mean, I do.
Yeah.
But here's what I'll say. I think the blockers or the hurdles will be mostly in legislation and in our understanding of how AI and data gets regulated and how we understand to adapt to it. I don't think they'll keep us from it, but we'll have to learn to adapt to it in all the right ways. Do I think the candidates will be unhappy with this? Nope. I think they think we're horrid now, and I think they will be happy for anything that gets us an inkling of a step better to treating them like actual, relevant, interesting, capable human beings who are seen and not just pass through like transactional pieces of paper. AI and the ability to leverage it in a conversational way to help connect them, it will increase their experience exponentially. And we know they understand and expect this experience because they're starting to have it on the consumer side. Yeah. This is the other story I tell people every day with candidates. Candidates didn't wake up one day and become a candidate. They live a whole life outside of the recruiting and hiring process, which delivers a whole set of expectations for how they interact with technology, what their expectations is for responsiveness and execution of technology. So in 18 months, they will have experience, they are today. Listen, the whatever number we have out there of individuals who are playing around with ChatGPT today, you know what that's doing? That's training them in mental models to think about how they should be expecting.
Yes, agreed. Yeah,
engagement
absolutely.
And interaction to happen.
Yeah.
So by the time 18 months rolls around, this isn't a convince them this is something to do. This is an expectation of the world they now live in.
And, we're an industry where some employers still ask people to fill in their details 3 times.
Oh, dear Lord.
That's
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Right. Imagine actually using a responsive generative AI-based conversation that allows me to gather information about a candidate from a variety of different places, including themselves, and then go fill out all these stupid forms that we need.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that solves the problem we have all been facing all this time, getting all of our data to connect together, getting it to talk, to put all of it together so that we can analyze it appropriately. We now have technologies, not just technologies that like technologists can go and play around with. You can go onto your laptop today and start playing around with the basics of this stuff. Anybody can.
So to pick up to kind of finish and pick up on a couple of things that you talked about, get your crystal ball out and think about this. So what might a TA team of the future look like?
That's a great question. Here's what I think. I think a TA team of the future is going to include 1 or 2 individuals who are focused on looking at candidate experience and hiring manager experience data and using that to translate into designing experience models. I then think it's going to include people who are technologists who can understand how technology can be leveraged and the use cases that can be built. And then you're going to need people who understand data and data management and privacy. So guess what? Recruiting is going to be really rich in compliance and legal people. And I think that's okay. I mean, right? I mean, I'd rather have them inside helping us think about how to do this rather than always when we're, being questioned about our practices.
I ran a webinar last week about the road ahead in terms of the future of TA. And one of the questions I asked the people listening to kind of ask or to consider was the kind of statement that we'll never have as many recruiters again as we had in August 2022. Now, I can tell you're nodding at me that that's something that you massively agree with, because obviously that, in the context of what we've just been talking about. You kind of mentioned this already, but just to dig in a little bit deeper, what would your advice be to, the recruiters of now in terms of what they need to learn, what skills they need to have for the future?
So if I have a friend who comes to me who's a recruiter or a sourcer, and let's say they're one of the many who become redundant or have become redundant in this recent bloodbath for recruiters. By the way, we go through these cycles like we talked about. And we all know, usually, those individuals will start freelancing, they'll go find something else, and then they'll wait for the ebb to come, come back up again and start going and hiring. I would look at them and I would say, use this time wisely. Use this time to get super smart on what is possible in the technology landscape. You need to understand how it operates. You need to be the person that does the geeky things like I did. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but sits down and says, I'm going to read this research report on how this thing works, and then think about what it means for the future. Why do I want them to do that? Because when I say a TA leader is going to have this concept and want to put this in place, right, they're going to need people around them who know how to do it. And they're going to trust their recruiters and their sourcers who they have strong reputations with, who they believe understand the process and the design, and they're going to lean on them. If you are one of those people who can lean into that experience and be part of building this future, you're going to have, I don't even know what the jobs of the future are going to be. Nobody does. I have this conversation with my 16-year-old frequently, and I'm like, I don't know what you're going to, I don't know if you should be studying algebra or not. Just do it, right?
Yeah.
I think now what we're saying to people is you can now see what you need to know. Go learn it, get good at it, and be the trusted advisors to get people there, and then see where that takes you next. What I would not do is stick our head in a hole, right, and start saying, oh, nah, that's never going to happen. People will always need me. Everybody always says this. This is never what happens. So this is not the time to be afraid. It's the time to be bold and get out there and do something cool. Don't be afraid. Afraid is going to get you lost and disappeared very quickly.
This is not the technology of 20 years ago.
Oh, God, no. It's not the technology of 3 years ago. I am telling you the rapid pace at which this stuff is coming at us.
Yeah.
I as somebody who now sits on this side of the house and looks at technology, I look every day. I'm here at Unleashed talking to new startup businesses every day about what they're doing. It used to be I'd come into these and 70% of the people I talk to, I'd go be like, why are you designing this? There's already something that does that, but okay, fine. And I just kind of, right? And then there'd be like a 10% where you go, that's kind of interesting. I don't know how that works yet. Or they don't really, or then there's a good portion like they don't understand the business. That's ridiculous, right? I'm sitting now talking to people at this Unleashed conference, people who are having one-off ideas, interesting, intriguing new concepts for things. And I'm thinking, crap, nobody's done that before. And that solves the problem we've been waiting for. And we now have the capability to solve problems we couldn't solve before. If we have people who are not, and honestly, a lot of people in this industry are not TA experts, right? Who are coming up with answers to problems we've been dealing with for 10 years, you can pretend and act like it's not happening, or you can get in the game and start saying, hey, I knew that was a problem. Now let's talk about how we can solve it.
Allyn, thank you very much for talking to me.
I know. Thank you, Matt. This was lovely. I appreciate it. Anytime.
My thanks to Allyn. You can subscribe to this podcast in Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or via your podcasting app of choice. Please also follow the show on Instagram. You can find us by searching for Recruiting Future. You can search all the past episodes at recruitingfuture.com. On that site, you can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter, Recruiting Future Feast, and get the inside track about everything that's coming up on the show. Thanks very much for listening. I'll be back next time, and I hope you'll join me.
This is my show.
Welcome, change agents, to your go-to place for stories that ignite your spirit, fuel your purpose, and connect us all. We believe in the incredible power of the human spirit, its boundless resilience, and the inspiration it brings to our lives. On the Driving Change podcast, we'll journey together through the extraordinary yet very relatable experiences of some of the most amazing people on earth. Our mission? That through these stories, we might just spark change within you and awaken a newfound motivation to harness your unique gifts to make a real difference in the world. So get ready to be inspired and join us on this incredible adventure. You can find the Driving Change podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you love listening to your favorite podcasts.